Welcome to Let's Talk. I'm your host, Vaishali Patil, and today we have Anne Archer who shares her inspiring and extraordinary journey with us. Her journey into integrative medicine began in the most unexpected way. Anne was a jewelry designer until her daughter Helena was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. That diagnosis became a turning point not just for Helena, but for Anne's entire life path. Anne refused to accept that conventional treatments were the only answers. She embarked on a profound journey that led her to body talk, epigenetics, and neuroplasticity, and the integration of Eastern and Western healing traditions. What she discovered didn't just transform Helena's health, it sparked a complete career transformation, and she has helped clients unlock their body's innate ability to heal. Today, we are exploring how our bodies remember everything from trauma and emotions and how we can release what no longer serves us.
A very warm welcome, Anne. Lovely to have you today. It was a pleasure meeting you at one of the events, and after you recommended, I have read the chapter of your book, Embracing the Extraordinary. So, would you like to tell us more about your book and how the journey started of writing the book?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So the book, as you say, is called Embracing the Extraordinary, The Reality of Parenting Neurodivergent Children. And I got invited to be part of this project. It's a collaborative book. So the 10 authors came together, all of whom have children with who have neurodivergent. And we came together under a group called Inspiring Women Wirral. We're all sole entrepreneurs, and we have all journeyed through this, trying to navigate bringing up our children, running our own businesses, and we all had a completely different story. So my chapter's perspective is around holistic healthcare, which is how I kind of navigated the challenges associated with bringing up my daughter, whose name is Helena. So really, I wanted to shine a light on some of the tools that you can use, some of the differences in away from conventional approaches to development and healthcare. So really, I just wanted to share my journey really with the viewers. It's a CIC project, so any money raised from the proceeds of the book goes back into the community, back into helping and supporting these types of projects where there might be a group of people who are struggling with a particular situation. So yeah, but other people's chapters are on about might be around adopting a child who's neurodivergent or navigating the school system. So, but mine was very much about my personal journey.
Yeah, wonderful. And I did read the chapter, and you've been really brave, and the way you have put your story honestly, and it's so vulnerable, I can imagine. And I think while writing that chapter, you must have relived those moments while raising Helena. So, would you like to talk a little bit about Helena's journey and what made you, take this approach to holistic health?
Okay, yeah, of course, yeah. So Helena is now 27, so we're going to reel back 27 years. So I was a jeweler by trade. I was in that business for 10 years or so. But once Helena was born, we didn't realise for quite some time that she had some challenges, developmental challenges. It was something that kind of unfolded as the years and months went by. But what I did know was she wasn't developing as quickly as other children were. So that kind of, we became under the radar of the health services, health professionals, and we were invited to go to some of the approaches like speech therapy because her speech was delayed, physiotherapy because she wasn't sitting, her mobility wasn't developing as it should have done, occupational therapy because she wasn't able to sit as well, so we had to find specialist seating. So these were all things that kind of unfolded within her first, I want to say, about 9 months. So because of all the appointments, my full-time job had to decrease. So I went from 5 days to 4 days, then to 2 days, then to 1 day. And that just wasn't practical. Being a working jeweller on the bench, I'd start a project and it might take a month to finish somebody's engagement ring, which is not okay. So we decided that it was the right time for me to step back and fully focus on what I could do to support Helena and her development. So that was really the start of it. And in that time, I was going to all the traditional therapies, like I say, speech therapy, occupational therapy, physio, and all of those therapies very, very much had their place and were very supportive to her development. But what I was finding was they weren't really supporting Helena as a whole. And some of the advice I was getting from the different therapists was conflicting. So that was quite stressful and quite disorientating. So I felt like I had to find something else that was going to support Helen's development and also my own well-being. So that's when I started to look down the holistic healthcare route. That was my opening into this journey.
When you started looking for other alternative therapies for Helena, so you said you found out about Body Talk and you started your journey towards Body Talk. So can you walk us through that journey and tell us more about what is Body Talk?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I came across Body Talk when I was doing a neuro rehabilitation program. So that was quite science based, quite about, learning about the brain and how the brain grows and develops and the different developmental stages that a baby goes through toddlerhood and then, early years. And because Helena wasn't developing that way, I was learning all about the brain. And when I was learning about the brain, they did look at things through a holistic lens. So that's how I got introduced to the Body Talk system. So I looked into it further and I realised that they did a one-day course called Body Talk Access. Now, the Body Talk system is a very, very complex system to learn about, but some of the principles behind it are very simple and some of the tools that you can use are very, very simple. So I went on this one-day course to learn different techniques to help different areas of development. So one of the techniques is called the cortices technique, and that is a brain balancing technique. And that really helps to improve the communication between the left and right hemispheres of the brain, which then helps to relax the nervous system, helps to bring clarity, improve concentration. So that was one technique. There was a technique that helped to support how your body utilises water. Well, we need water to be utilised well for all different functions, for communication between cells. Helena's cells and neurons weren't communicating as effectively and efficiently. Muscle contraction and nerve transmission. Physically, she was having challenges with her mobility. So that was a really, really useful technique to learn. Body chemistry was one which supports the immune system in the form of helping it to fight pathogens, but also helping to dampen down the immune response in relation to allergies and intolerances. Although she didn't have any specific allergies, what I learned was often people with neurological challenges can be more easily affected by intolerances such as gluten, dairy, sugars, things like that. So this body chemistry technique was a really, really important technique to help her with a balanced immune system. There was also one for relaxing the nervous system in relation to normalising the stress threshold. So when I embarked upon this journey and these tools, initially it was solely for Helena, but very, very quickly I realised how important these techniques were for my own well-being, to navigate the stresses of supporting it in every way that I needed to. So I think what was so profound for me was it was very, very empowering. It was felt so that I had these tools, I could actually do something to support her development, because it was quite lonely, and it was quite it really knocked my confidence, because I had this child who wasn't developing like other people's children were. And up until this point, I was going to different professionals to say, she's not learning, what do I do? Handing over the responsibility to them, really. So then finding these tools through Body Talk to actually knowing that I could do these things with my child and seeing the results was very, very empowering, really, really helpful.
Yeah, I can imagine it must have been so challenging, and having access to something like this, has helped you and Helena to navigate to this process. I think quite well. That's what I understand. I remember you talking about epigenetics. Would you like to take us through what epigenetics is and tell our listeners more about it and how it helps in the healing process?
So, epigenetics is the environmental factors which can change the way genes express themselves, whether genes are turned on or off or up or down. Now, that might be genes that affect your endocrine system, your nervous system, your digestive system. So, what I mean by that is there are different things in our environment which can impact how those different systems work and how efficiently and effectively they do. So stress and trauma are epigenetic factors. So they are things that things that go on in your life which can affect the physical body. So when we look at epigenetics, which is kind of a Western medical science perspective on things, we can also bring in what we think of as the way Chinese medicine perhaps look at health and well-being, and they very much recognize how different emotions affect the physical form. So we could have emotion of grief, and if I may just share my own experience, because it gives listeners an idea of, from a personal perspective, how my experience of my emotions affected my physiology, so epigenetically. From a Chinese medicine perspective, grief is an emotion that affects the lungs and the large intestine. So these two organs are there to help us generate grief, process what's happening, and let go of that grief. So for me, it wasn't the lungs that was affected, it was the large intestine. So I had quite sluggish digestion, and I knew from my upbringing, from my parents, that that was nothing to do with diet or hydration, because they always instilled in us the importance of good food and hydration. With me, it was the grief that was held in my large intestine was related to the grief that I was holding on to in relation to my daughter. I hadn't processed the grief of the child that I thought I was going to have. The life I had already mapped out for her without even knowing that I'd done that. So because I hadn't processed that grief, my body was giving me a symptom to help me to pay attention to something I needed to move forward with, acknowledge and process. So once I sat with that grief, that feeling, and expressed that feeling, then my body didn't need to give me that symptom anymore. I realised that she was never meant to be that child, and I was never meant to be that mother to her. Her journey was going to be very different, and so was mine. So yes, I still hold some grief, I still get sad, but it's not immobilising me, and it's not immobilising my digestive system. So once I acknowledge and release that grief, my body didn't need to give me that symptom anymore. My digestive system resumed normal function, and that's how our body talks to us, through environmental and emotional factors. Another example are my shoulders. So yeah, my daughter is a wheelchair user, so I did lots and lots of lifting and carrying. However, the shoulders from a Chinese medicine perspective and holistic perspective can represent responsibility. We think of the sayings, carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders, the burden of responsibility. And we even see this image of Atlas with that image, with the world on his shoulders. So I could hear myself even saying the words, she's my daughter, she's my responsibility. And I was trying to be everything to her, for her nutritionist, her speech therapist, her mum, her brother's mum, all these different things. And I wasn't giving other people permission to help me, because I was saying, she's my daughter, she's my responsibility. But until I realised that I didn't actually have to do everything myself, I could literally unburden myself. When I realised I could do that, and I could ask my sisters for help, make some extra meals when you're putting a batch on, could you pick up my son from school? Just lightening the load for myself. Once I realised I could do that, and I didn't have to take full responsibility, my shoulders didn't need to give me that symptom anymore. And literally, as I unburden myself, the physiology changes too. So that's just a little bit of an example.
Oh, that's a wonderful example. So basically, it's about accepting what the situation is and where we are at life. I think it is about acceptance and then letting go, recognizing where we are. That's what helps, is what I try to understand, if I'm correct.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, some situations are really, really difficult to accept, and sometimes it's just about acknowledging and moving through and not being immobilized, because we can get stuck in a life situation which is not helpful to anybody, ourselves, the people around us. So, um, yeah, some people might find it difficult to let go of that grief because it's impacting their lives so immensely. However, for me personally, it was just holding me back. It was holding us all back. So, and as I mentioned, my body was giving me a symptom, and that's what always happens, in my opinion. Our symptoms are our body's way of telling us to pay attention to something in our lives, whether it be pain, whether it be discomfort, whether it be, diagnosed by a descriptive term. It's always our body's way of helping us to learn and make a change.
Yeah, brilliant. So, like you said, you had Helena and plus you had her brother as well. So, what was the struggle, managing between two children? How were you trying to give attention to the little one along with managing Helena? How was that? Were you torn apart between the two?
Absolutely. And, it really used to sadden me that Jack took a back burner. But I think it's very common if one person in your life needs more support, you automatically go to that person, because it's just natural to do that. And I always thought of Jack as being really, really good baby, really patient, really, not demanding. But I suppose he had to be that way because he'd learnt that I didn't automatically rush to him when he needed something. But he did learn to trust the fact that he would be seen, he would be heard. But I do swear that he used to think his name was In a Minute Jack, because that's always what I was saying to him. He asked for something, in a minute, Jack, in a minute, Jack. But yeah, so it was, but in some respects as well. So it was difficult because I was trying to push one child in a wheelchair and carry another toddler on my hip. But at points as well, he was actually part of the healing journey as well, because it's quite lonely and isolating when you're in a situation where you are no longer the same as your friends and your, family members to an extent, because your life is very different. Your worries and your concerns are very, very different. So having Jack kind of brought us back into a more balanced world, a more balanced life, because all of a sudden, yes, his little struggles also mattered. And I worried about, whether he'd be bullied in the school playground, how he'd feel if he didn't win that race in the school sports day. So all of a sudden, it'd gone from the fact that Helen couldn't walk and listening to other people's worries about their children, thinking, well, that's nothing in comparison. I now had that feeling of empathy. Actually, do you know what? Other people's, what seem smaller worries and concerns, they matter too. So in some ways, it was difficult, but in other ways, it was quite healing. But what I've learned is the silent weight of sibling responsibility. So sometimes we think of the child without the additional needs. Oh, they're okay, they're fine. They're not the disabled one. But that's not always the case. I remember Jack coming down way past the time he should have been in bed, asleep one night, and he looked at me and his face was troubled. I said, "What's the matter, Jack?" And he looked at me and he said, "Well, what if I'm not strong enough or capable enough to look after Helena when you're not here?" And that really, really touched me, because I thought, well, you're not her carer, you're her brother. She's not your responsibility. You will always have help. There will always be people there. So I hadn't realised that he actually thought that he was going to be responsible when myself and their dad were no longer around.
Yeah, but I think how he was processing things and how he was saying, and I think he's quite mature to think, that as a brother he needs to be responsible. That's so mature of him. I think
Absolutely.
it's blessed to have Jack, really.
Absolutely. And a few years earlier that he must have only been about 10, and I was picking him up from football, and he looked at me and he said, Mum would be life would be very different if Helena wasn't disabled, wouldn't it? And I braced myself for him saying, oh, it's not fair because we can't do this and we can't do that. But he didn't. He said, you wouldn't have learnt body talk and we wouldn't eat nearly so healthily. So really, she's been great for our family, hasn't she, Mum?
Oh,
And I just thought, well, what a wonderful way to see the situation. So yeah,
yeah.
he taught me a lot that day too.
Really, being a child, having a completely different perspective. How many kids can do this, you know? So really, really, he is a blessing, I would say.
Absolutely.
You had mentioned that your most of your family are health professionals. So when you had this approach to body talk, was there any resistance from your family? How did they take this approach of yours for Helena?
No, I don't think there was any resistance at all. Um, there might have been a lack of understanding as to why I was doing this, because it's not the approaches I was learning about are not what we're taught in school. It's
Yeah,
just, and especially with my father was a GP, my mum
yeah,
was a nurse. I embarked upon this program when Helena was about 15 years old, but because she could crawl on her hands and knees, but she never learnt to crawl on her tummy, commando crawl as we're called, and that's a very, very important stage of that movement creates changes in the brain and helps us to move to the next level, which then helps us to progress to from crawling on all fours to pulling up to stand to then eventually walking. So Helena missed some of these
stones.
mental stages. So
Yeah.
they could see that I was physically going back to that level, and they would help to facilitate these movements. They would help, literally helping her crawling, helping her rolling, helping her moving from lying down to sitting up. And that's what we call neuroplasticity, and that's how the brain can rewire through repetitive movements and through instruction. So they were learning through me and through their own actual approaches, because one sister is a physiotherapist, one works with preschool children with special needs, again, who teaches about the developmental stages. Another sister works with very high up in the autistic developmental world, and so they all had their own background knowledge, so they were just very open to seeing what else they were interested, not just for their niece, their grandchild, but for their own education too. So no, there was no resistance. There was just encouragement, and they knew that how determined I was. They knew how desperate I was to help her reach her potential, and they were just very, very prepared to help me in any way that they could.
Wonderful. If anybody comes to you, for help, or anybody wants to take this route of treatment or of healing, do you offer workshops? How do you help people, and what's your approach if somebody comes to you with some trauma or any neurodivergent child?
Okay, so primarily because I've now been a certified body talk practitioner for 12 years, and I've studied and qualified in lots of the advanced modalities. So I have a real knowledge of anatomy, physiology, hormones, neurotransmitters, microbiome, etc. They might come to me for a one-to-one treatment. And that could be they will come with a symptom or a diagnosis. But when we work together, it's a therapy that works by lying down on a treatment couch, after having an in-depth consultation, health consultation, and life consultation. I will, through this body talk system, I will be able to help reveal the story behind their symptom. So they might come with digestive system disorder, but that might not be about the actual organs themselves being dysfunctional. It could be around environmental or lifestyle situations. So the digestive system can be not just about digesting our food, but by just digesting our life processes. So for a difficult situation, that situation could be the epigenetic factor. So together we will reveal what is happening within them and how the body's systems can naturally restore balance, because our bodies do have this innate wisdom, this innate capacity to heal given the right circumstances. So we find in the story, we are identifying the contributing factors. We are then acknowledging through the body mind that ability to self-heal. And then we know our body can heal. We cut our finger, the healing process automatically is initiated. But when we are stressed, that process slows down. We heal less quickly. Our bodies are in fight flight. So what we're doing when we're working together is we are allowing the client's nervous system to shift into that parasympathetic healing mode, allowing their circulation to improve. When we're in fight flight, the body's priorities change because it's there to help us run away from a threat, been years gone by, whereas now our stress is very different. They could be our workload, our financial stresses, many, many different things. So when I work together with a client, it's very, very personal because everybody's story behind a symptom is very, very different. So one-to-one sessions are something very passionate about. I don't just do body talk, I do Indian head massage, lymphatic drainage, other different things like that. But what I've developed over the years is how people, when they're within a group of like-minded people, find how profound healing can be. So I run retreats and wellbeing events. So my retreats are quite intimate. They're usually about 12 guests come together and we do body talk in a slightly different way. It's more like a mindfulness experience of revealing what might be behind your physical symptom, your struggles. So we'll do a group body talk session. We will do some movement, yoga, yin yoga, Taoist yoga, things like that. We will get the body moving, get all the circulation going, free up any physical tension that way. We will do walking meditations, which is a beautiful practice because it helps us to slow down, be in touch with our environment. We'll often pick up something from nature to represent something that we want to let go of in our life. We'll offer it into a stream. We'll watch it float away. That's a really, really quite a beautiful practice to do.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah, it is beautiful. We'll do tea ceremonies so we could be mindful of what nature can offer us and the properties of these teas. And sitting, again, engaging our senses. What does it taste like? Sometimes we'll make ourselves a drink and we won't even know what it tastes like because 1 minute it's gone. It's quenching our thirst, but there's so much more to it than that. It's embodying nature, getting in touch with the elements. I partnered with a beautiful lady called Christine, and she practices somatic shamanism. So we'll be guided on a shamanic journey to meet the spirit guides, which is another way of getting wisdom. We do all sorts. What else do we do on our retreats? Sound
Yeah,
therapy.
oh,
Sound
that's
therapy.
great.
Yeah, gong baths, crystal bowls.
The
Yeah,
retreats sound really interesting. Yeah.
I love it. We do
Definitely, I would like to come along for one.
Oh, it would be lovely to have you. Yeah, yeah. My next retreat is on the 4th of December, and it's a full moon fire ceremony. So this is an evening retreat where we will do a group body talk session. We'll have a little tea ceremony. We'll go down to the fire pit in the garden under the full moon because the moon affects us. The planets affect us. They reflect what's going on in our lives, so they can really help to. They can be really transformative. So we'll sit under the full moon around the fire. Fire is transformational. We put something in the fire, the wood then turns to ash. It's very, it's very symbolic of transformation.
Yeah,
So yeah,
simple practices, I guess, and having the right environment around us is very important, is what it looks like. If you make a good environment, a positive environment, I think that can help, creating positive systems and energies in our body.
absolutely, absolutely. Because the beauty of nature. Um, I'd struggle to find somebody who doesn't, feel so much better when they see something beautiful, see that the sun shining in a blue sky, seeing a flower emerging from a bud, seeing the waves crashing over the rocks. It's just so powerful. I'm very, very blessed with the environment that I live in, surrounded by nature. So it's really lovely to see guests taking some time out, being in that energy, giving their body the perfect environment to heal.
Wonderful. And what would be your message to parents who are taking care of their neurodivergent child? How do they take care of themselves, and how do they make this process stress free for themselves?
Okay, well, um, stress free is a big ask. But what I can say is, please, if I can give you one piece of advice, is please don't feel guilty over your own self care is absolutely essential. You cannot fill from an empty cup. You cannot give your child what they need if you are exhausted, you're running on empty. You need that energy. You need to keep well, because when I was not looking after my own well-being and I did become unwell, I couldn't even heal because I wasn't giving myself the opportunity to. And that really has a knock on effect on everybody, your child and the rest of the family. So please just take some time, anything that you can do to relax your nervous system. If your finances or your circumstances don't allow you to go and see a practitioner, then there's so many things you can do yourself. You can check in with your breathing. That breathing calms the nervous system down. It helps when the exhale, release that stress, giving yourself a few minutes. Keep well hydrated, because hydration helps to synthesize emotions as well. So I don't know if anyone's experienced it. Sometimes if they're dehydrated, they can really feel quite anxious as well. So just making sure you're well hydrated, doing some mindfulness, doing some gratitude, because although as difficult as things might seem, there's always things that you can be grateful for. And that is very, very healing, very, very powerful. There are some simple techniques. So one of the body talk system techniques, the cortices, which I talked about earlier, you can visit my website, and there's a demonstration on there, video demonstration. This technique takes less than a minute. It really helps to calm the nervous system down. And you can do it not just on yourself, but you can do it on your child also, or any member of the family. It helps to relax the nervous system, and it helps to bring clarity when you're feeling overwhelmed. So I'd invite you to go on my website or look on YouTube. There's lots and lots of different examples of the Cortices technique to explore.
It was lovely to have you. I really learned so much today, a big learning curve for me as well, and understanding about the healing process. And definitely, I would like to attend one of your retreats and experience the approach you take to Body Talk. Thank you so much and wish you all the best.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to share my passion and my work with you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey with us today. Your story is a profound reminder that sometimes our greatest challenges lead us to our true calling. For everyone listening, if today's conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to explore Anne's work. You can find her at Anne Archer's Holistic Health, where she offers individual sessions, transformative retreats, and even holistic celebrations that honor the body, mind, and spirit. Remember, your body isn't broken, it's brilliant, and it's been waiting for you to listen to its wisdom. Thank you for joining us on Let's Talk. Until next time, stay open and let's keep talking.